The UN Assembly Hall buzzed with the quiet hum of anticipation. Diplomats from across the world seated in perfect order, their faces a mix of curiosity and tension. Dr. Jason Reed, the lead negotiator for Earth's Space Diplomacy Division, stood at the front of the room. His sharp eyes scanned the holographic map of the galaxy displayed before him, outlining the delicate peace treaties with the Zither. For decades, Earth had struggled to maintain peace with the ever-watchful alien factions, and today's meeting was to be the moment that determined humanity's future among the stars. Yet, despite his years of preparation, Jason couldn't shake a nagging sense of unease. As the room quieted, the smooth voice of the UN Secretary General resonated through the hall. "Ladies and gentlemen, the leader of the Zither, Queen Cassiora, will address us now." The hologram flickered, and then the image of a woman appeared. At first glance, she was just like any other ambassador, tall, poised, elegant. But as the image focused, Jason's heart skipped a beat. Her face was eerily familiar. He stared, unable to fully grasp what his mind was telling him. "Do you recognize me, Spiderman? I'm your childhood neighbor," said the alien beauty. The voice echoed in Jason's head. His mouth went dry. The last time he had heard that voice, so full of warmth, so full of mischief, was over 20 years ago. The childhood friend who had moved away without a word, Cassie. The girl who lived next door, the one who always beat him at every game of hide and seek, the one who'd shared his first awkward dance at the middle school prom. But now she wasn't just a girl from Earth. She was a queen of the Zither, one of the most feared and respected species in the galaxy. Jason's mind raced as the hologram of Cassie, now Cassiora, the queen, smiled gently. The smile he remembered, the one that always made his heart race, was still there, but it was different. Cold. It was a smile of someone who had seen far more than he could ever imagine. "Jason Reed," her voice crackled through the speaker, causing the room to grow eerily silent. "I am not the girl you once knew, but I remember you. Do you remember me?" Jason felt the world tilt beneath him. He was surrounded by diplomats, by world leaders who were watching this moment unfold. They had no idea what this truly meant for him, for Earth, the whole galaxy. Cassie, or Cassiora, as she now was, wasn't just a childhood friend. She was the key to humanity's place in the cosmos, and her sudden appearance threw everything into chaos. She continued, her voice low and commanding, yet somehow familiar. "I have come to offer Earth a chance, Jason. A chance for your species to prove that you are worthy of joining the Galactic Council. But I must warn you, this trial is not just about strength. It's about humanity's spirit, your will to survive in the face of the unknown." Jason struggled to catch his breath, trying to grasp the enormity of it all. This wasn't just a diplomatic meeting. This wasn't just another alien race. This was someone who had been part of his past, someone who had known him in ways no one else could. And now she was offering humanity a path forward into the stars. The room felt like it was closing in on him. Every inch of space seemed to pulse with the gravity of the moment. He was a diplomat, but right now he wasn't just speaking for Earth. He was speaking for himself, for the boy who had once traded comic books and secrets with this woman who now held the fate of the planet in her hands. Cassiora's image shimmered as the transmission ended, leaving Jason standing at the center of the room, the weight of the universe pressing down on his shoulders. The murmurs of the assembly grew louder, but he couldn't hear them. His mind was still back on Earth, on the days when he and Cassie had watched the stars from their backyard, dreaming of faraway worlds. Back then, they never could have known what the future would hold. Now it was all real, and it was all coming down to him. "Are you ready for this, Jason?" he whispered to himself, his eyes locked on the empty space where Cassiora had once stood. The room had gone silent. The world, it seemed, was holding its breath. Jason Reed sat in his office, the cold, sterile walls of the United Nations building pressing in around him. His fingers hovered over the comms panel, still processing what had just happened. Cassiora, had just left him speechless in front of the entire assembly. He couldn't shake the feeling that the universe had just thrown him into a game he wasn't prepared to play. The holographic map of the galaxy in front of him flickered, its soft blue lights casting long shadows across the room. Jason's mind wasn't on the tree talks or the other alien factions. It was on Cassie, his childhood friend, now an alien queen. How did she become this? He thought, rubbing his temples. The child he once knew was nothing like the woman who had addressed the UN, a being with eyes that glowed with the power of ancient stars, a leader of a species that spanned the galaxy. It didn't make sense. Just then, a soft ping from his comms startled him. He tapped the screen, and there she was, Cassiora, this time in a private call. Her image shimmered into view, her features more defined and otherworldly than ever. The Zither had changed her in ways Jason couldn't begin to understand. Her voice, though still familiar, carried the weight of someone who had seen centuries pass in the blink of an eye. "Jason," she said, her tone quiet but insistent. "I know you must have questions, and I can only give you the answers I'm allowed to." Jason's pulse quickened, but he held his ground. "I need to know what's going on. How did this happen? How did you become this?" His voice cracked on the last word. Cassiora's gaze softened, but her eyes held a sharpness, a depth Jason hadn't seen before. "I didn't become anything, Jason. I grew into it. I am the product of my people's history, their struggles, their victories. We Zither live longer than your kind, and we evolve differently. You remember the girl who lived next door, who played tag with you in the yard, who loved watching the stars?" She paused, almost as if waiting for Jason to say something, but he was too stunned to respond. "Jason, the galaxy is vast. It's not like Earth. The Zithar were once a dying race, scattered across the stars, weak and broken. But then we changed. We adapted. We became what you see now. And it was my people who watched over your species in secret, seeing if humanity could rise above its own limitations." Jason felt a lump form in his throat. Cassie, the girl who used to get scraped knees chasing after him, now had the weight of 1,000 years of history behind her. She wasn't just his childhood friend anymore. She was an entire species' future. "You watched us all these years without us knowing?" Jason asked, his voice trembling. He was struggling to understand the scope of it all. "Yes," Cassiora replied, her expression unreadable. "We observed Earth because we saw potential. You have something other species don't, a resilience, a will to survive, to rise after every fall. The Zither have seen hundreds of civilizations rise and fall, but none like yours. And now I am here at the center of it all, because the moment has arrived. Your species has reached a point where you must decide, evolve or perish. But I can't guide you alone. I need you, Jason. I need you to help us understand if Earth is ready for what's coming." Jason leaned back in his chair, trying to absorb her words, the weight of what she was asking, what she was offering, pressed down on him. Was humanity truly ready? Or were they just another fleeting star in the galaxy's endless sky? And more than that, what did this mean for Earth's future? Could he trust her? "Cassie," he said slowly, the words feeling strange on his tongue. "How much of the girl I knew is still there? Or am I just speaking to the Zither Queen now?" She paused, her gaze shifting slightly, her alien features unreadable. For a moment, Jason thought he saw a flicker of sadness. "I am both, Jason. The girl you knew and the queen I've become. The Zither have their duties, their burdens, and I carry them. But don't think for a second that the bond we had as children is gone. It's still here, and it's stronger than you know." Her voice softened, almost like a whisper. "You're part of this now, Jason. Whether you like it or not, and Earth's future, it rests in your hands." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Jason alone in his dimly lit office. The quiet that followed felt suffocating. What now? He wondered, his thoughts spiraling. The girl he had once known, the girl who was once just a neighbor, had become a key player in a galactic game of life and death. And Jason had no idea whether he was ready to face the storm that was about to come. But one thing was certain. His next steps would change everything. The sun was setting over New York City, its warm glow casting long shadows across the streets. Jason Reed stood at the edge of a rooftop, the cool wind tousling his hair as he gazed out over the city he'd sworn to protect. It all felt so normal, too normal. How could the world he knew, the world of bustling streets and quiet evenings with friends, still exist when the cosmos itself had just been thrown into chaos? A soft beat from his comms interrupted his thoughts. He glanced down at the holographic screen that flickered to life. It was a message from Cassiora, and this time, it wasn't a simple transmission. She was here, waiting, her image flickering into view like a ghostly projection against the darkening skyline. Jason, she said, her voice clear and calm, though the weight of her words was undeniable. The time has come. Your trial begins now. Jason's heart skipped a beat. Trial. He had heard the word before, but hearing it from Cassiora made it seem less like a formal event and more like a countdown to something catastrophic. He thought back to their conversation, to her cryptic words about humanity's survival. Was this the test she had spoken of? A chance to prove Earth's worth in the galaxy. I'm ready, he said, though his voice felt hollow in his own ears. He wasn't sure if he was ready, but he knew he had no choice. His people, his world, were depending on him. Cassiora's eyes shimmered with an emotion Jason couldn't quite place. The Zithar are watching, Jason. The galaxy is watching. The stakes are higher than you can imagine. With that, the transmission cut off, and Jason was left alone in the growing dusk, feeling the gravity of her words sink in. The following days felt like a blur. Jason found himself thrust into a whirlwind of preparation, scrambling to assemble a team of Earth's best, military strategists, scientists, and diplomats, all chosen to represent humanity's best chance at surviving the trials. They gathered in an undisclosed location, a nondescript facility outside of the city, where a large holographic map of the galaxy illuminated the room. Jason's team, a mixture of the brightest minds Earth had to offer, sat in tense silence, each of them aware that the fate of their planet was tied to what would happen next. At the front of the room stood Colonel Jace Carter, a battle-hardened officer with more scars than Jason cared to count. He exuded an air of confidence, but Jason could see the unease in his eyes. "All right, people," Carter said, his voice cutting through the silence. "This isn't just another mission. This is about humanity's survival. We've been chosen, not because we're the strongest or the smartest, but because we have something no other species in the galaxy has, our spirit." Jason nodded, his pulse racing as Carter continued. "The Zithar may have the power, the technology, but we have something more. We have heart, and that's what we need to show them. But know this, if we fail, it won't just be our planet at risk. It'll be everything we know. This is it." The room fell silent. The weight of Carter's words hung in the air, suffocating everyone in the room. Jason's eyes met those of his colleagues. They were all scared. They had every reason to be, but they were in this together. Jason took a deep breath and turned toward the large screen at the front of the room. A countdown appeared in the corner, 3 days until the first trial. He knew the trials would be unlike anything humanity had ever faced. These weren't games. They weren't just diplomatic discussions or military exercises. This was something more, a test of will, of ingenuity, of humanity's very essence. The galaxy would watch. The Zithar would judge. And Earth, with all its flaws and strengths, had to prove itself worthy. The first test, Cassiora had said, would take place on a desolate world in the Andromeda Galaxy, an uninhabited planet filled with perilous landscapes and unpredictable terrain. It was a survival challenge, but Jason knew it was more than that. The real challenge wasn't just surviving the trials. It was surviving them while proving to the universe that humanity could rise above its limitations. Jason's eyes swept over the map of the galaxy one more time. The unknown stretched out before him like an endless sea of stars, filled with dangers and possibilities. He wasn't just leading a team into a hostile environment. He was leading them into the heart of humanity's future. With a final glance at his team, Jason spoke, his voice steady. "We don't know what awaits us, but we do know one thing. Humanity has always fought, and that's what we'll do. We'll fight to show the galaxy who we are." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room, and as the countdown continued ticking down, Jason felt a renewed sense of purpose. The trials were just beginning, but humanity would face them head-on, with courage, determination, and heart. The roar of the spacecraft's engines reverberated through the hull, the low hum vibrating in Jason Reed's chest as he gripped the armrests. The view outside the cockpit was like nothing he had ever seen, vast and empty, the stars stretching in all directions, cold and distant. Yet the planet ahead was anything but empty. It was a scarred, barren world, desolate but full of danger. The first trial awaited. 5 minutes to touchdown. Colonel Jace Carter's voice crackled over the intercom. His tone was steady, but Jason could hear the edge of tension in it. Everyone knew that this was the beginning of something that would change everything. It wasn't just a test. It was the first step to proving humanity's worth, not just to the Zethar, but to every alien civilization that had watched them from the shadows. Jason glanced at the other members of his team, each one focused and silent. They all wore the same mixture of anxiety and determination. The holographic display in front of him flickered, showing the terrain below, a harsh, jagged landscape, dotted with craters and ravines. It looked like a place that had been forgotten by time itself, but Jason knew better than to underestimate it. "Remember," he said, his voice cutting through the tension, "this is about survival, but it's also about what we can do when we push beyond the limits. Stay sharp, stick together." No one spoke in response, but the steady nods of the team told him all he needed to know. They were ready. The ship descended, its hull shuddering slightly as the atmosphere thickened. Jason's eyes narrowed as the landscape grew larger through the viewport. He could see the swirling dust storms whipping across the barren plains, a constant reminder that nature on this world didn't play by any rules. But they couldn't afford to be intimidated. Not now. Not when the stakes were this high. With a sudden jolt, the spacecraft landed, the impact reverberating through the vessel. The doors hissed open, and the team was greeted by a rush of harsh, dry air that scraped against their skin like sandpaper. Jason's breath caught as he stepped onto the alien soil. It was colder than he expected, and the sky above was a sickly yellow, its sun a dull red glow in the distance. It felt like the planet itself was alive, watching them, waiting for them to make the wrong move. The ground beneath their feet was rocky and uneven, the surface pocked with deep craters. Jason scanned the horizon, trying to get a sense of the lay of the land. In the far distance, he could just make out the silhouette of a massive structure, an ancient ruin, its spires towering like the skeletal remains of some forgotten civilization. "Team, we're moving out," Jason said, his voice steady despite the uncertainty gnawing at the edges of his mind. "Our objective is to reach that structure. We don't know what's waiting for us, but we have to reach it. Stay together. Keep your eyes open." As they began their trek across the desolate landscape, every footstep seemed to echo in the silence. The air was thin, making it hard to catch a full breath. The wind picked up, carrying with it the scent of something rotten, something alien. Every instinct Jason had screamed at him to be cautious, to turn back. But there was no turning back now. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed from deep beneath the ground. Jason froze, his senses on high alert. The ground trembled slightly, the dust swirling in the air like a living thing. A distant, eerie howl pierced the silence, a sound unlike anything Jason had ever heard before. "What was that?" One of the team members, Lieutenant Sophie Grant, whispered, her hand hovering near the weapon at her side. Jason's jaw clenched. "I don't know, but stay sharp. We're not alone here." The howl came again, closer this time, and Jason's heart raced. The team quickly formed a tighter formation, weapons ready, scanning the horizon. Whatever it was moving fast, and it was heading straight for them. From behind a jagged rock formation, something massive and shadowy moved into view, its body covered in thick, spiked armor that glinted like obsidian in the dim light. Its eyes burned a bright, unnatural yellow, and its mouth opened wide, revealing rows of sharp teeth. A monstrous creature, a true nightmare made flesh. "Get back!" Carter shouted, taking a defensive stance, his rifle raised. But the creature didn't hesitate. With a sudden roar, it lunged toward them, a blur of motion too fast for the human eye to track. The team fired, but the creature was already on top of them, its massive claws swiping through the air, narrowly missing Jason. His heart pounded in his chest as he dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the creature's attack. Dust and debris flew as the team scattered, their weapons still blazing. The battle raged around them as the creature continued its relentless assault. Its massive claws scraped against the rocky ground, sending sparks into the air with every swipe. Jason Reed's heart was pounding in his chest as he ducked behind a jagged outcropping, the heat of the alien creature's breath scorching the air. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, each passing second bringing them closer to either victory or death. "Keep moving," Colonel Carter shouted, his voice hoarse but filled with resolve. "Don't let it corner you." Jason's mind was racing, trying to process the situation. The creature was fast, too fast. It darted between rocks, its glowing eyes locked onto them like a predator stalking its prey. They had managed to land a few hits, but nothing that seemed to slow it down. If anything, it was growing more enraged by the minute. Sophia Grant, lieutenant of the team, took cover behind a large boulder, her weapon firing in short bursts. "It's too strong. We need to get to the structure," she yelled, her voice strained with desperation. "That's our only chance." Jason nodded, his eyes scanning the chaotic battlefield. The massive alien was circling them, its movement so fluid and fast that it was almost impossible to track. Its claws were dripping with something that glowed eerily in the dim light, and every time it roared, the ground shook beneath their feet. "We can't stay here," Jason said, his mind working quickly. "We need to split its focus. If we can get it distracted, we can make a run for the ruins." Carter raised an eyebrow, but didn't hesitate. "You heard the man. Everyone move out now." Jason took a deep breath, trying to calm his racing thoughts. He knew what he had to do. The creature's attention was focused on Carter and the others, leaving a brief window of opportunity. He grabbed his weapon, checking its charge one last time. Then, without a second thought, he sprinted toward the beast's blind side, weaving between rocks and debris as fast as he could. The creature let out a terrifying screech, its head snapping toward him, eyes narrowing with a vicious intent. But it was too late. Jason had already thrown himself into motion. He fired a barrage of rounds into the creature's flank, the shots echoing through the air as they slammed into its armored hide. The beast roared in pain, swinging its enormous tail toward him with a force that would have flattened anything in its path. Jason barely managed to roll out of the way, the tail grazing his shoulder and sending him crashing into the dirt. The air was thick with dust, the earth trembling under the force of their movements. Jason's heart was pounding as he scrambled to his feet, adrenaline fueling his every move. He couldn't let the others down. They needed to reach the ruins. It was their only shot at surviving the trial. From the corner of his eye, he saw Carter and Sophia moving toward the distant structure. They were heading straight for the creature's blind spot, but they were too far away to outrun it. Jason had to keep the creature occupied for just a little longer. "Come on, you overgrown lizard," he muttered under his breath, his fingers tightening around the trigger. He fired again, aiming for the creature's head this time, trying to land a hit where the armor seemed thinnest. The creature growled in frustration, turning its massive form back toward him, its fangs bared in a snarl. Jason didn't hesitate. He had one chance to get the team to safety, and he wasn't about to waste it. He dove toward the creature, landing on the ground just as it lunged forward, its claws swiping inches from his face. The creature paused for a moment, sensing that Jason wasn't going to give up. He could feel the heat radiating off its body, the weight of its massive form a constant presence in his mind. But then, in that instant, Jason saw the opening. He hurled himself to the side, rolling behind a cluster of rocks. The creature's attention snapped to him again, its focus completely on him, but it didn't notice the others, Carter and Sophia, sprinting toward the ruins. "Go," Jason yelled, his voice hoarse as he kept the creature's attention. "I've got this." Without waiting for a response, Carter and Sophia dashed toward the structure, moving as fast as they could through the harsh terrain. Jason fired one last round, landing it squarely in the creature's exposed side. The beast shrieked, its massive form stumbling back for a split second, just enough for the others to reach the safety of the ancient ruins. Jason didn't wait for a moment longer. He turned and sprinted after them, the creature's enraged roar echoing in his ears as he ran. Every muscle in his body screamed in protest, but he pushed forward, driven by the knowledge that his team was depending on him. As he reached the ruins, he barely made it inside before the massive alien crashed into the entrance, its claws scraping against the stone. The air inside the ancient structure was thick with dust, the faint smell of age and decay hanging in the shadows. The ruins stretched far beyond what Jason could see, the stone walls etched with cryptic symbols, glowing faintly under the dim light that filtered through cracks in the ceiling. Every step they took echoed like a distant drumbeat, a reminder that they were deep within the heart of an alien world, and every corner held something unknown. Jason wiped the sweat from his brow, his muscles still tense from the battle outside. His heart was pounding, but he knew they weren't safe yet. The creature hadn't given up. It would be coming, relentless in its pursuit. He could almost feel its hot breath on the back of his neck. "Keep moving," Jason ordered, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. He motioned for Carter and Safia to move forward, scanning the surroundings for any signs of danger. The ruins were eerie in their silence, as if they were waiting for something, waiting for them. Carter gripped his weapon tighter, his eyes darting around. "What are we looking for exactly?" he asked, his voice low. "We don't have much time before that thing catches up with us." Jason didn't answer immediately. His eyes lingered on the symbols on the walls, which seemed to shift as they moved deeper into the ruin. They weren't just decoration. They were part of something larger, something important. The designs matched the patterns he'd seen in the map projections back at their base. This structure wasn't just an abandoned outpost. It was something more. "We need to find the central chamber," Jason finally said, his tone grim. "There's something in there, something that might give us an edge." "Like what?" Safia asked, her voice tinged with skepticism. She was tough, but the uncertainty was wearing on her. "A weapon? A trap?" "I don't know," Jason admitted, "but it's our best shot." The deeper they moved, the more oppressive the air became. The walls were narrow, and the floor uneven, forcing them to move slowly, cautiously. Every footstep felt like it could be their last, the weight of the unknown pressing in on them. The creature outside was still out there, just beyond the entrance, waiting for the moment when they would be too distracted to fight back. They passed through several chambers, each more unsettling than the last. Strange artifacts lay scattered about, long-forgotten relics of the species that had once called this world home. Some of them glowed with an unnatural light, their surfaces covered in intricate designs that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. Jason couldn't shake the feeling that the ruins were alive, that the walls themselves were watching them. Finally, they reached a massive door at the end of the hall. It was ancient, its surface cracked and worn by time, but there was no mistaking the power it emanated. The symbols on the door matched those they had seen in the previous chambers. This was it, the central chamber. Jason motioned for Carter and Safia to step back. "This is it. Stay alert." He approached the door cautiously, his hand brushing the cold stone. As soon as his fingers made contact, the symbols on the surface began to glow, faint lines of light running across the door's surface like a circuit coming to life. Jason stepped back, watching as the door slowly began to open, its massive stone panels sliding apart with a deep, grinding noise that shook the very air. A rush of cool air poured out from the chamber beyond, carrying with it the scent of something metallic, ancient. Jason could feel the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end as they stepped inside. The chamber was vast, its ceiling disappearing into shadow, and the floor was covered in intricate patterns, etched into the stone like some kind of map. In the center of the room stood a massive pedestal, a stone column that seemed to hum with energy. On top of it lay a strange artifact, a glowing crystal, its surface pulsating with a soft, eerie light. The crystal was the source of the energy Jason could feel thrumming in the air. "What is that?" Safia whispered, her voice awed. Jason didn't answer immediately. He was too focused on the crystal. He knew somehow that it was the key to everything, the trial, the survival of Earth, the fate of humanity. His instincts screamed at him to take it, to use it. Before he could move closer, however, a low growl echoed through the chamber, and the walls trembled as the creature outside let out another terrifying roar. It was here. The door to the chamber began to rumble, and Jason knew they wouldn't have much time. "We need to secure this place," Carter said, his voice tight with urgency. "That thing is coming. We don't know how much time we have." Jason turned toward him, his gaze steely. "We fight. We hold this position. If we lose this crystal, we lose everything." Safia nodded grimly, her hand tightening on her weapon. The chamber rumbled again, the sound of the creature's approaching steps sending vibrations through the floor. Jason Reed's pulse quickened as he reached out, his hand brushing the crystal once more. A sharp, electric pulse shot through him, sending a jolt of energy straight into his core. The air around him crackled, and for a moment, he could feel the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. It was as though the very fabric of the ruins had awakened, acknowledging his presence, and with it, a newfound power. Jason. Sophia's voice sliced through the tension. She was standing guard near the entrance, her weapon trained on the massive stone door that was beginning to shake under the weight of the creature outside. We don't have much time. Jason forced himself to focus. He couldn't afford to get distracted, not now. He took a step back, eyes flicking to the glowing crystal that sat on the pedestal. His instincts were screaming at him to grab it, but he held back, knowing the creature was closing in. "Get ready," Jason said, his voice steady despite the pounding in his chest. "Once that door opens, we make our stand here. We won't let it take us. We've come too far." The rumbling grew louder, and the door finally began to splinter. The creature's dark silhouette loomed in the frame, its massive form outlined by the dim light spilling through the cracks in the stone. Jason could hear its heavy breathing, low and guttural, like the growl of a predator that had cornered its prey. His grip tightened around his weapon. Carter, his face set in grim determination, readied himself. "We're not backing down. Humanity doesn't run from monsters." Jason's eyes flicked toward the entrance again, where the creature's monstrous claws began to tear at the stone, opening a wider path. His heart was thudding against his ribs as he felt the temperature in the room drop. The creature's growls grew louder, and Jason could feel the oppressive weight of its presence like an unseen hand pressing against his chest. "Ready yourselves," Jason whispered. In that instant, the door shattered, and the creature finally stepped into the chamber. It was even larger than he'd imagined, towering above them, its body covered in jagged black armor that seemed to absorb the very light around it. Its glowing yellow eyes locked onto them with a predatory intensity, and its massive jaws parted, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. It lunged forward, sending debris flying with every step. Jason's mind raced, calculating his every move. "Fall back to the far wall," he yelled, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We need to hold the ground. Don't let it split us up." They all moved in unison, retreating toward the back of the chamber. The creature was relentless, its every movement a blur of raw power. It charged toward them, its claws swiping through the air with the force of a sledgehammer. The ground beneath their feet trembled as if the very foundations of the ruin were about to give way. Sophia fired first, her weapon unleashing a barrage of bullets toward the creature's face. But the shots seemed to do nothing, bouncing off its thick armor like raindrops off a metal roof. The creature roared in fury, turning its attention toward her, its massive tail whipping around to strike. "Watch out," Jason shouted, diving towards Sophia. He tackled her to the ground just in time, the tail swishing over their heads. He could feel the rush of air as it passed, narrowly missing them both. "Thanks," Sophia breathed, scrambling to her feet. But they didn't have time for thanks. The creature was already advancing again, its massive legs thudding against the floor. It was faster than they had anticipated, too fast for them to evade. It seemed to anticipate every move they made, as if it could read their minds. Jason's eyes darted to the pedestal again. The crystal, it was still glowing, pulsating with a rhythm that matched the pounding of his heart. It was the key. But to use it, they had to survive long enough to get close. Carter fired another shot, hitting the creature in its side, but it didn't even flinch. The monster was relentless, its massive jaws snapping open as it advanced toward them. "We need a plan now," Carter yelled, the strain in his voice evident. Distracted, Jason said through gritted teeth. "Sophia, hit it from the right. Carter, I'll need you to get to its left side. I'm going for the crystal." The team didn't hesitate. They moved in a synchronized, well-practiced dance, splitting up to confuse the creature. Sophia darted to the right, unloading a series of rapid shots into the creature's side. Carter took the left, firing from behind cover, keeping the monster's attention divided. Jason, heart racing, made a break for the pedestal. The creature, enraged, swiped at the air, its claws cleaving through stone as if it were paper. Jason dove under its massive arm, rolling into the center of the chamber.